Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 233 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Jonathan Ma. He's a 3D environment artist from Boston, United States. And of course, before we go into the questions, let me quickly mention that in the for contact section of the captions, you can find the ID to his Instagram account, the links to his art station and Twitter as well, so you can see more works in depth stuff of his works as well. And with that being out of the way, let's jump into the first question where I start off the podcast with everyone. Give us a little introduction on how we got into the world of visual arts and design. Basically, tell us your origin story of how you became an artist.
Yeah, sure thing. So this is a long story, but I think my route to doing art is a pretty untypical one. I actually didn't start out doing art at all. I was kind of like the kid in school. You wouldn't see sketching in their free time or doodling during class. I was much more of a STEM student, and my main focus in high school was to pursue computer science and video game programming, because at the time I really wanted to focus I really interested in video games, and I really wanted to do video game programming in my future. So I actually had no correlation or affiliation to art when I was growing up, basically throughout all of high school. And the one time I was introduced to art was actually, there was an elective in my high school called 3D art and animation. It was a small elective that our media department was doing, and a couple of me and my friends actually joined it, just for fun, I guess. And in that class, it's kind of self-explanatory, but you would just do 3D modeling and animation, and use in Blender. And the funny thing is that by the end of that class, I actually didn't enjoy 3D modeling, which was kind of funny, because I just remember I struggled so much with Blender, and that it just wasn't my thing. And because I was already so straight on the CS path, I'm just I'm gonna code and that's about it. That didn't really faze me at all. I kind of just okay, the class is over, gonna move on. But then moving forward, I took another elective in my high school, and it was called video game programming, basics or something. And in that class, it was more up my current alley of what I was doing. But eventually, I think the final project, it was about making a terrain, and the goal was to hide 3 objects around the area. And the teacher at the time just said oh, get your assets online for free. But for some reason, I don't know why, I was you know what, I'm gonna 3D model all of my assets and have them all be unique and special. And I for the first time, I got back into Blender and started doing art and kind of on my own time for fun. And I actually relearning it, I found really enjoyable, which is something I couldn't say I enjoyed about other aspects of school. And then I feel that was my first introduction to be oh wait, I kind of enjoy art. But at the time I was still focused on CS. So when I went into college, I mainly focused on CS, but eventually I ended up dual majoring in CS and art, and eventually midway through I kind of transferred from CS to art. So it's kind of a roundabout way to get where I was, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, your mentality was kind of similar to a lot of people, me included as well, where first you pick computer science because it's such a broad thing. You can branch out to so many different other fields. If you, for example, I don't know, maybe you don't like programming, back-end programming, web programming, can go to application programming. If you don't like application programming, can go to game programming. And of course, if you're like me and a lot of other people, you probably always Google the top 10 salaries, for example, in US or something, and you see, wow, these technical coders and stuff, they get the biggest slice of the cake. I don't know if you check the game industry, everyone, we're both, trying to be artists right now, and we're artists, breaking an industry. But honestly, if you see people who know Houdini, people who are tech artists, people who are coders who work with the engines and code plugins, those where the big money is,
Yeah.
And art actually relatively doesn't get that much money, and which is kind of weird, to be honest. And the thing is, was it the same for you? At first you were all right, I'm going into this because it has good future, and also I can always, be in a game studio and it's always close to game development, right? And I can, learn art as a hobby, but you didn't know you probably should have chosen art as your main thing and have the programming as a side, optional quest. You chose the wrong order of optional and main quest, right?
Yeah, I think No, what you're explaining is like exactly like how I felt. Like for me, it's like CS. It's like at that time, and still even to this day, I feel like it's like one of like a really just like solid career path. Like if you major in CS, like you're like there's a lot of jobs out there for you. There's like a lot of options that relate to CS. Like you can do back end, front end, like full stack. I enjoy doing like UI UX design and like web development. So that's like an aspect of CS that I enjoyed. And I feel like, it's a very like safe career path because there's so many like jobs and it's a good payment and like you can go into a ton of fields with it. Um, I just felt like, so in my experience, I was able to go on like internships during my college years, and I went on like two CS or like computer science related internships. One I did like database design for healthcare, which sounds as exciting as it does. And then like I also did a UI UX like internship. And throughout kind of both those experiences, I kind of learned that like CS for me wasn't like pushing me to like I didn't want to push myself to improve at CS. I was kind of just like doing it just to do it, if that makes sense. Whereas when I did like art, I felt like I could like easily like keep on going, if that makes sense. I could keep on like pushing myself to like learn and enjoy the process where I feel like computer science wasn't it for me. So I feel like even though like for me personally, like I kind of knew that like CS was like the safer route, I felt like art for me was just something I could like see myself doing in the future and like genuinely enjoying. Because for me, I feel like if I would want to get a job, I want to like enjoy the work I do. Because I feel like that will like, I feel like it'd be hard. It's hard for me to like work for something I don't enjoy, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, for me it was kind of similar as well because like I'm trying to give the TLDR like the short version of my whole thing. To me, it was like a dream to do art for video games and work in the industry and stuff like that. So I never pursued it because I was like, that's too good to be true. Don't be ambitious. Just go with something that you're sure you're going to make money with and, stuff like that. Then you can do art later or maybe as a hobby or a side project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was a huge mistake. Listen, to anyone who's listening, maybe art might not be even your thing. And that's 100% fine.
Mm-hmm.
Try to pursue the thing that when you think about it and you say, oh my God, that'd be so awesome if I could pull this off. Try to pursue that. Like even if it could be like, programming, say, oh my God, I wish I could just code like, all day and just work on games and, and bring my ideas to fruition, in a studio on a project, but I'm already 2 years in the game arts program. So I don't know what should I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that scenario is kind of too specific, so,
Yeah.
like in that case, you probably should finish your degree, then pursue your passion, I think, if that was the case. But you get the point, you should always try to, get, as I said, like main quest, side quest, like for me, the main quest is becoming like a 3D environment artist. And the side quest is like maybe in the future, if I had more time, maybe start, working on my 2D skills, because like being able to draw into this is something that I've always wanted to do, like be really good at it. But yeah, Robot has been bumpy, it's just the whole self-exploration phase is kind of like, interesting as well. It's a kind of a chaotic experience for me, at least, for some people it's pretty linear.
Yeah.
And yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like, so for me, like I remember when I said earlier, I said that like I started my college degree, I was like straight CS and like nothing else was on the mind. But I knew like in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I don't want to be just straight CS. I want to like also do like something else. Like a few things went through my mind. I landed on art eventually. I think the scary thing is that like midway through my college experience, I realized that I wasn't enjoying CS and that I was enjoying art a lot more. And I was very like kind of like frantic or like kind of worried about like, do I change my career path like midway through my whole like college experience? And I think just for me, like it was very a hectic time, and kind of what you were saying, like main quest, side quest. I feel like my like quest like priorities started to like shift a little bit towards art. Well, it was definitely like a very scary route, but I do feel like, especially in your like college like days, for me at least, I feel like a lot of students, maybe me included, I felt like I needed to like get a job right after school, and I needed like college to like prepare me for that. But I feel like college is also a very good time for like people to experiment, which I kind of felt like towards the end of my decision, like, okay, like I experimented with like computer science. It wasn't like for me at the end, but I found art, and that's kind of like now I know what I want to do, and I'm able to pursue that on my own. So I guess that's my like answer to kind of your question.
All right. And speaking of like, college, I think you posted on your Twitter that I think you've recently graduated, and I think we talked about it as well before the recording. Like something interesting we also can touch upon is your whole experience in the college, like because before you, of course, it started as a couple of side notes I need to quickly mention that. Well, a lot of people might say, all right, you can learn anything from YouTube, Udemy, like Schoolism, all these different platforms, to learn art separately. With even really cheap, immense courses, like huge courses, like with only $350, but the content is worth much more than that, and they teach a lot more in details than any college could do. So a lot of people might say, wait, so why should I do that? Well, even like let's do like a analysis. Let's say United States, all right? Let's say you're domestic to United States, and let's say you're an international student in the United States, all right? And let's see what are the benefits. The benefits of going to a college or getting even a 2-year degree, like a 2-year diploma, is that it's not necessarily about the skill on your resume. It shows that, all right, this guy surely is dedicated to what he's doing. He went to college. And also a very important thing, especially for international students, it shows the company that they're hiring, the human resources, all other staff of people who your resume will go under their nose, will probably see, all right, this person knows the cultures and the workplace culture and how to basically be in the kind of Western society like this. So that person has been like in that kind of environmental societal setting as well, and it kind of indicates that as well when you have a degree. I know it's a bit weird to kind of like market like this, but it's actually true, because I've actually talked to many people about this, because I don't have a bachelor's degree, so it's always kind of been my bane of my existence, this whole thing about getting a degree and getting into the industry. But as always in life, there's always many doors and ways to get to where you want. So if you good enough, you can get in. That's it. Like even if you don't have a bachelor's degree, but of course it helps. Like if it's in your option, I highly suggest you do, because it's also a good way to also make connections and also develop your soft skills, because soft skills honestly is, I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think it's 60% soft skills and 40% technical skills in the industry if you want to succeed, because I know a lot of people who are very technically adept, but they're kind of hermits, and we've all seen those people, but like, for example, from me personally, like the way I approach this, I try to look at this outside the box. Like one of the main reasons actually I started the podcast was this, just connect with people all around the world, do podcasts, and it's been working great. But when you're in the university of a country you want to actually work in the industry of, that helps a lot. Even if you're like a motivated student who wants to shine, and if you're motivated and hardworking and passionate, trust me, you will catch the attention of your professor, because most students in, I think, most like academic institutions, they're just like, I think 70% of them are just, they fill the chairs, that's it. So when there's someone, and not just in games, just in general, this is my kind of anecdotal, probably wrong assumption, but this is from my experience of like just being in a lot of academic settings in my life and just talking to different people. So if you're passionate and like you have that like brightness, like those anime eyes in your eyes when your professor looks at you and says, oh my god, all right, this guy's passionate and I would love to bring them up, so this stuff really helpful. But at the end of the day, if it's not affordable for you for any reason, like don't worry, it's not the end of the road at all, like there are people right now, we're in the age of social media, like we're in 2023, like you can just literally email anyone from the industry, like message them on social media. And sure, not every time you're going to get a reply because they're either really busy or probably your question can be Googled. But if that's not the case, you can definitely make it work. You just need to calm down, relax, and see all the possibilities in front of you. I know that sounds so cliche, like bullshit motivational thing, but that is so true, honestly.
Yeah.
And so we come to this point now that and also there's something we talked about before the podcast was just because you finish college doesn't mean you will get into the industry, which I think based on the stuff I said, people can kind of deduct why that is. But I want to actually hear it from your experience, like, just in the 4 years you've been in the college. So, we're all ears right now.
Yeah, so I think you made some great points in terms of like what you said earlier about like how nowadays like it's very easy to access information, especially for game art, and honestly like a lot of career paths through like the internet. And like I've like messaged people on Twitter that are like very like deep in their career, and I've learned a lot just from like messaging someone like randomly and hoping for the best. So like I definitely agree with you that saying that like you really if you can't afford college, or like you can't like, or you don't think you want to go, I don't think it's like the end all be all. I do think there are like benefits, like you were saying, with like soft skills that I feel like can develop, and like I feel like I develop as well through like university. But going back to your question about like saying college doesn't prepare you for like industry, I feel like for my field in particular, and I might be wrong about other fields in like the game aspects, but I feel like a lot of people underestimate how competitive like being like a 3D environmental artist for games like can be. It's a very like selective few that end up getting junior positions, and there aren't that many junior positions to begin with. So you really have to be someone outstanding to like get in those positions. And I feel like schools these days, they don't really like see that, or are kind of like preparing students to really like meet those standards. I feel like some like more like inexperienced, or like maybe some students will like not like think like the really big like popular person on like, or like really good person on like ArtStation is like, like they think they're like the peak, and they don't need to like be that, if that makes sense. But I feel like it's important for artists to kind of like look at like junior environmental artists, like see where they're at, and try to like also like be where they're at, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of people undershoot where they really need to shoot higher. And I feel like schools these days, they aren't really like teaching. I feel like some things are always like glossed over, whether it be like technical skills, like people just like, for example, aren't showing like maybe they're like aren't doing their best in like their topology work, or maybe in their presentation skills for their portfolio. Maybe they're like showing their work, but they're not showing certain aspects that recruiters are wanting to see. And I feel like a lot of that can be rectified if people really like open their eyes to like ArtStation, and like looked at people that were like getting these positions that they're yearning for. So yeah, I feel like the main issues with like school, I guess, is that I feel like sometimes the expectation is lowered when it should be like risen, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that's a really conclusive like thought, but that's been kind of like my thought as I kind of gone through college, because I felt like at some point throughout my career in like university, I was like, I feel like the rate I'm like learning isn't exactly like what's going to get me a job. I feel like if I keep going down this like linear path of just like doing what my professor's telling me to do and not pushing myself further, I'm not going to like get there. And I feel like that was a big like learning point for me when I was in university, was that I had to like step out and be the person that would like go further, like take the extra like mile to really like improve. So yeah, I guess that's my kind of like personal take on like why sometimes like universities aren't really preparing students. And I see it a lot on Twitter as well. Like people always say that like, or not a lot of people, but I feel like I see some people say that, they just weren't ready after they finished college, and like they thought their portfolios are really good, but maybe like they're not up to standard as to what they expected or the industry expects. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's, in most colleges and universities who teach game arts or stuff like that, a lot of the instructors are not like, haven't been that strong in the industry. They might have like, minor experiences, but a lot of them, they just, of course, transfer the basic, fundamental skills of the subject they're teaching, and that's it. Yeah. But the thing is, especially with art, like it's mostly the person's work. Like it's not like other fields that you just follow direction and guidelines and stuff like as some academic institution and that's it. Boom, you're going to the next level. No, like you're competing with people who do this for fun, even if they don't get a job.
Yeah,
I'm gonna repeat that sentence again. you're competing against people who are doing this for fun, even if they don't get a job. So they probably will do it a lot more than you, and they're a
Hmm.
lot more competent than you. And even sure, their portfolios are not good at all because they don't know the standards and things that to prepare it. But skill wise, they're set.
Hmm.
And like now because the context right now is about 3D environment art, like 3D environment art is getting much more advanced, let's say, all right? Because imagine if the portfolio of someone who wants to get started to, let's say, Ubisoft 10 years ago as like a 3D environment artist is like compared to
Hmm.
now, right
Yeah,
now, like
so
even
different.
these days, yeah, so different, definitely. Not just 3D environment art, but most positions, but especially there's 3D environment art because of like there's the new Unreal Engine technology. You need to get good. You need to most places even now they say substance designer is a plus, but you get an edge if you actually get good at it. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
like and
very important.
like you need to be good with sculpting. You need to be really good with textures. And by the way, I'm not making this out to be something super hard. No, it isn't. But it requires more time. Let's just say that. All right.
Yeah.
You need to put in more work, than usual. And yeah, but the thing is, the fundamentals are everything, because if you actually understand the fundamentals, the softwares don't matter, and you just know quickly what to do. And unfortunately, the way actually I've seen a curriculum of a lot of college game art programs or different programs, it's just like texturing, Maya,
Yeah.
compositing, and later on you will have a final project, and it's just you do the bare minimum and get a pass. And
Hmm.
of course, that's not going to get you anywhere, because
Yeah.
quality is something that even like if you're even not an art person, you can kind of get it as a human. It's kind of like intrinsic things we understand about art. That's in all of us. So
Hmm.
you basically have to get you need to really increase the quality of every aspect of your work. And that's the only way. And that sounds kind of simple, and I think anyone who's listening, they're like, yeah, duh, of course we know that. That's why we need guidance. But what I'm trying to say is to also keep in mind that you also need to invest in your own self-studies as well. That's my key point that I'm
Yeah.
trying to take away. It's not just whatever your professors or instructors. I'm sure there are great people. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm
Hmm.
not trying to diss on like necessarily institutions or stuff like that. But yeah, art is more practical thing. Like it's not
Yeah.
like other stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, quality never lies. You can't fake quality. You can't
Hmm.
get a short around it. You just need to put in a lot of work and heart and passion and be open minded to your mistakes and growth. And
Hmm.
yeah, eat your vitamins and then drink your
Yeah.
vegetables. What am I saying? Like yeah, basically, I was just trying to make fun of myself for saying so many generic stuff. But you get the point, right?
Yeah, I think like a lot of students like they'll be like, "Oh, I have like a portfolio and here's my degree by the way, like in my art." Like they're waving it in front of it trying to like distract from certain things, but I feel like I think it's the thing about art is that like unlike other career paths, like I feel like for like computer science, maybe like not 100%, but like you can kind of just like say you have a degree from like a university and show like you've done a few projects and like you'll eventually get a job at some point. Art, it's like like a lot of recruiters, I feel like from what I've heard, like they don't really care about like if you have a degree or not. They'll go straight to your portfolio and look at your actual work and see the quality and like technical aspects. So I feel like it's very like important that you don't just do the curriculum. You need to go above and beyond to push yourself because at the end of the day, a degree is a degree, and unfortunately, like fortunately or unfortunately, recruiters that's not what's going to get you the job. It's about your portfolio and like your actual work. So yeah, you bring up some great. You think you bring up some great points. Is that you really got to push yourself. And again, I think you said this well too, but I don't think we're not trying to demean professors or like anyone teaching because I think like me personally as well, like I had great professors. They were all super nice and encouraging, and I think without their help, I wouldn't be like where I am today without their support. But I do think there are like maybe like disconnects between like what they learned if they worked in the game industry like 5 or 10 years ago versus like what is like current. Because you look at games like 10 years ago, you're like, and like you look at games now, like there's such a big like gap in like advancement from then and there that I feel like there's a disconnect between like some professors that like were in games a long time ago but no longer are like in tune with maybe the current technology and like current practices. And I feel like yeah, it's important to really like push yourself beyond kind of like what like your curriculum is telling you to do. So yeah.
Yeah, and just one final thing I need to add to this is also don't be afraid to specialize in something you love. What I mean by that is right now, as we said, of course, things are changing, as the years will go by. And one of the big changes, obviously and naturally, is the whole concept of specialization. So right now, every big company right now needs like vegetation artists and foliage artists. Of course, even before that, even 2 decades ago, they needed that. But the need for specialists right now is so much. Like if you're really good at something, let's say your whole thing is just leather texture. I promise you're going to get hired so fast because you're a specialist in a specific thing. And every company tries to leverage like a specialist to, make their quality a little bit better, Like, trust me, this is so important. Like, for example, my specialty is what I'm trying to focus on is just doing like environments with like, solar punk, futuristic, post-apocalyptic, like a mix of these elements. So that's what I'm trying to focus right now, especially in my own project. And it doesn't have to be texture. It doesn't have to be style. It could be anything, like whatever, like, like grinds your gears, basically. I don't know. Is that the correct expression? Actually, I'm not sure. But you get my point. Like whatever, like tickles your ADHD brain. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that is so important. Like it could be texturing. It could be, I don't know, a little of the VFX. Sure, maybe you're environment artist, but you kind of really gotten good at like, I don't know, just something, that you highlighted in your environments. That always stands out. Because. Like, yeah, let's say, for example, cloth. Like, you're really getting really good at making cloths, like a really nice, stylized, cloth models and, how to rig them properly and all that stuff, So what I'm saying, on top of everything in general that you're going to do, aside from your college, aside from your self-study, try to find something and say this to yourself, write somewhere for yourself. I want to be one of the top 5 people in the world right now that can do this thing. Is it leather texture? And also, like, as a fun project, keep it secret. Don't let anyone know. Just work on it in silence. Imagine you're Batman of that thing, And I swear that's going to stand you apart so much. Like, that's going to, like, make it huge difference. Like, just remember that.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays, like studios are, like, advancing a lot. And there's a lot of competition out there. And I feel like everyone's just trying to do something better. So I think being a generalist, I think would really worry me personally, because I know, like, especially a lot of like the top studios, like they're looking for people that can like do like this one thing really good, and the other guy will cover like other things that they will do very good. And I think, when I was like picking out like my field of like art, I was debating between a lot of things, because I knew I liked 3D at a certain point in my life, but I knew like also I was like, I need to like focus on something. I can't be like a character artist, a rigger, like a FX artist, and like a 3D environment artist at the same time. Like that's not practical, and you're not gonna like really. You might learn like a lot of different things, but it will be hard to like, really stand out from a pool of like really amazing candidates out there. So I know when I was picking out like what I want to do, kind of like what you were saying, it's really important to pick something that will get your gears grinding or your ADHD brain going. And I feel like for me it was like, I end up landing on like stylized environment art, like very like kind of like anime, like Ghibli, like that kind of art, or like just like stylized in general. And I feel like for me, the reason I picked that is just because that's what I enjoy the most, and that's what I can feel like I can push myself to go further. And like when I look at my art and I look at other arts, it's like I keep telling myself, I want to be on that next level, like this person like over here. That's posting their like also their stylized art. Like I always want to like try to step up. If that makes sense. So I feel like like it's always important to like pick something you enjoy and that you can push yourself in through your career.
Yeah, definitely. And all right, here's an interesting question that we can segue to our subjects, which is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Oh boy, so. I think for me, the biggest inspiration when I was getting into 3D art, especially 3D environment art, was, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but it was Yasmin Habazafurki, I think is how you say her name. She's the German artist that
Wait,
specializes in
I think
stylized work.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but yeah, I think I know her.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a wonderful artist. And I remember when I was like, I said this earlier, but when I was kind of like deciding like what path I wanted to go towards in like 3D art in general, eventually I landed on like 3D environment art, and I found her work, and I like fell in love with like what she was doing. She focused like on specifically like hand painted like stylized work, which is like the type of work I've always like felt like for me like me kind of get me going like as opposed to something like realism. And that just really inspired me because also at the time, um, I was like debating whether or not it was like too late for me to get into art because I was mainly like CS focused at the time, and this is kind of like maybe like my like at beginning of like senior or junior year of college, I think, and I was really concerned about like kind of moving forward. But I saw that she's actually like a very young artist. She's only like a few years like older than me, I think, and that really like gave me inspiration looking at her art and where she was and a lot of her achievements to kind of tell myself to like, oh, I can do this. Like if I push myself and like I feel like I was the type of person that was like motivated enough to like keep to like if I put my head to something, I feel like I could like achieve like my goal. So seeing her work and like the quality and like her like achievements really inspired me. And then getting into like, finally like deciding that I wanted to be an environment artist. I started to kind of expand my horizons. I looked a lot at game art. I was really inspired by games like the Zelda series as well as like Genshin Impact. I really like their art styles, and I feel like they really inspired me for the type of stylized work I like to do. So yeah, I feel like those were the main three that kind of kicked off, or like main like things that kind of kicked off my like path to trying to be an environment artist. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean. And yeah, speaking of projects, like, what are you working on right now? I mean, if you can tell us about if there's no NDAs involved, whether it be personal
Yeah.
projects or commissions, like, what are you doing right now?
Yeah. So in terms of personal projects, I had just recently finished like my latest project called like Shinren Cottage. It was a project I started like I think last summer, and I worked on it till about mid fall, and I actually ended up coming back to that project halfway through, or like not halfway through, but I come back to that project recently because I had taken a 3D environment art class, and I learned a lot of things that I feel like I didn't learn like through college. This is like a class outside of my college or university. I feel like I learned a lot. So I actually came back to that project, and I recently finished that up because there are a lot of touches I felt like I could have made to that project based on like knowledge I didn't know back then. So I came back to it, worked on it for a little bit, and just finished publishing it, which I'm really happy about. And currently, I don't have plans for too many projects. I've actually have started like doing contract work though, and I'm actually working with two indie studios with developing their vertical slice. I can't say much more than that, but I'm working with them right now to help produce some cool work. And then in terms of personal projects, I had just gotten back from like about a 2 week trip after my graduation from university. So right now I don't have too many plans for personal projects. I did have one small thing that I was planning to work on with my girlfriend actually. So she's like character artist and I do environment art. And this is kind of random, but a while ago, I do you know the game Pikmin by any chance?
Oh yeah, I think yeah, I did from Nintendo, right?
Yeah, yeah, Nintendo.
Right.
So I recently showed her like I played with her Pikmin 3 on the Nintendo Switch because on the Switch version there was like a two-player version. And we played through that and we both ended up liking the game a lot. And we like decided like near the end of the game that like it'd be cool if we made like a little like diorama where I like made a little environment and she made the little like Pikmin characters for like a little like work like project together. So currently we're kind of in like the concepting phase where we're just like having fun like creating like concepts and like trying to figure something out in terms of that. But in terms of like actually things I'm working on, there's not so much. Other than that though, like my current goal for like projects right now is just to focus mainly on like art studies and like improve like some things that I feel like can be touched up in my work. Like for example, I feel like things like, for example, my sculpting skills, I feel like I can improve more organic stuff. So I'm setting more time aside to focus on those areas and not so much creating really big projects. Because I feel like in the past, I would get sucked into holes where I commit myself to finishing like a whole project and like regretting it because it's so big and it's taking up so much time, where I could do like little like smaller art studies where I can like grow, I feel like, at a quicker and like better rate. Um, so that's my current goal right now. And then, yeah, I've kind of just been like preparing for like the future and like working on the current work I do have right now. So yeah.
All right, awesome. Now, speaking of like future, actually, what other non-arts like non-arts related stuff you're into, like hobbies, ambitions, like things you want to achieve, like that are completely non-arts related, by the way?
Oh, completely not art related. Okay. This is something I've always wanted as a kid, and this is really random. But when I was in high school, I got really, really into like cooking and like watching like cooking videos on YouTube. So I remember like throughout college and like beginning of or like late high school, I was like, when I move out, I want like a really nice kitchen and like I want really nice like cooking like utensils and like fancy like pans and like all like cooking equipment to like try making all these things I like saw on YouTube videos as a kid. So I guess like my current like I guess like hobbies and like goals is like I really enjoy cooking and I really like experimenting. I haven't experimented too much since like really like high school because college is just kind of hard to like do that when you live in like a really small apartment where I lived, where like the smoke alarm is like extremely sensitive. So like one whiff of smoke and the alarm goes off and your whole like apartment complex starts yelling at you. So besides like that and like art, I guess right now just I think I said this earlier, but I've always been interested in like video games, just kind of art related. But those are the main things right now. I've been kind of like doing, or like I guess ambitions outside of art is like eventually like moving out, having like a nice place to myself, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Yeah, actually, I like cooking as well a lot. I've been cooking since I was 10. Like, I guess technically, like, it's kind of weird to answer this question even for myself because, like, everything in some sense turns into an art-related thing.
It's like connected some way, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, because sometimes, like, I got answers like someone wanted to. I don't quite remember, but someone wanted to open a book cafe. Like later on, someone wanted to, I don't know, just become a scuba diving instructor. Like, and I was like, wow, And yeah, like for me, yes, sir, go on.
I have heard from like, for example, like some like people that to really like grow your art is to like experience other things in the world besides like art, or like for some game developers would say like to like grow. To make better games, you have to like just not make games or not just be like invested in games. It's important to like experience real life and see like how those experiences kind of transfer over to like a newer medium or like your medium of like art, I guess. So yeah.
All right, awesome. And well, we've reached the final question and section of the podcast, which is called Time Capsule. And all right, let me just explain how it's gonna go.
Okay.
Imagine like you're about to be ejected from a space ship to the bottomless pit of abyss of like the space, right? And you're never going to be heard or seen ever again. But there's before the countdown timer goes off to 0, and you have a couple of minutes left. And in those couple of minutes, you can record some voice logs, and they will remain, of course, on the spaceship. So in your last moments that you ever can have the chance to express yourself, what would you have to say from yourself, one human being, to another human being? And that another human being is anyone who's going to listen to this podcast or that voice recording, let's say, at any point of time in the future. So what do you have to say?
I'd probably start off with like, please get me off this like airship. But in more serious note, let me think real quick. I think for others, I want them to let them know that it's never too late to start something you enjoy, and there's always like room to grow. I feel like for me, my art journey has been kind of like weird. Like again, like how I said at the beginning of this podcast, I like didn't do art at all as a kid, basically through all of high school. And I felt like going into college, I had like a little bit of interest, but I was always scared that like, there's so many other students here that like have done art for like a super long time, and it's like their like life, and I feel like I didn't necessarily, I wasn't qualified to really like try or like pursue it. But I like others to know that even if they're in a similar position where they feel like they're not qualified or not experienced enough, or it's too late, that it really isn't ever too late. If you put your mind to it and really try and put all your all to it, I feel like anything is really achievable. And I think as long as you work hard, work smart, and keep pushing, I feel like anything you can do. It's never too late to try. That'd be my message, I guess. And help.
Right.
Get me off the airship. Get me off the airship.
I'm sorry, it's like you're kind of screwed. Yeah, but like the whole thing with this question is to put people on the spot, basically, And anytime like someone from the guests of the podcast asks, "Hey, can I have the questions beforehand?" And I'm like, no, because that way I can put you on the spot, right? Like even with actually another question was kind of like that. It's not just the last question. It was your favorite artists and designers. That's also one of the questions that most people really feel the pressure, like they're being put on the spot as well, because everyone has like hundreds of artists that inspire them with bits and pieces. But when you don't know the question beforehand, your brain goes on overdrive to come up with some answers, and the answers you're going to get, sure, maybe they're not all the answers, but they're the real answers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. They're the ones that mean the most.
Exactly. And with that being said, thank you so much for coming by. Where can people contact you if they had any questions? Is your Instagram and Twitter account okay? They're linked down in the description below, by the way.
Yeah, if anyone ever wants to contact me, like Twitter is the best source of like connection. That or my emails also like linked to my Twitter. So if anyone has any questions or like wants to work with me, definitely feel free to ask there. I love it when people ask me questions and I'm able to help. That's always been something I've always loved to do. So yeah, if anyone ever wants to contact me, have any questions, or wants to learn more, feel free to ask me on Twitter or email me, and I'll be happy to reply.
All right, awesome. You heard it, guys. And well, with that being said, again, thank you so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. As always, if there's any comments or critiques or suggestions, leave them down in the comment section down below. And with that being said, take care, everyone, and stay safe. Till next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.